Imagine boarding a plane on a sunny morning. You fasten your seatbelt, the engines roar, and soon you're high above the clouds. But what if, without realizing it, everyone around you slowly drifted into unconsciousness? Passengers, flight attendants, even the pilots. That chilling nightmare became reality on August 14, 2005, when Helios Airways Flight 522 turned into one of the most mysterious and haunting disasters in aviation history. This is the story of the plane where everyone fell asleep. Helios Airways was a small budget airline based in Cyprus. On that summer morning, Flight 522 was scheduled to travel from Larnaca, Cyprus to Prague in the Czech Republic, with a stopover in Athens, Greece. The aircraft was a Boeing 737-300, a reliable workhorse in the skies, carrying 115 passengers and 6 crew members. For most travelers, it was just another holiday flight. Families, tourists, and workers returning to Europe boarded with no idea of the tragedy waiting ahead. At 9:07 a.m., the Boeing 737 lifted off from Larnaca International Airport. Everything seemed normal. Air traffic controllers watched the plane climb steadily, and inside the cabin, passengers settled into their seats. But almost immediately after takeoff, problems began to surface. Problems invisible to the passengers, but deadly in the cockpit. Airplanes are designed to fly at altitudes where the air is too thin for humans to breathe safely. That's why cabins are pressurized. Before every flight, crews must check the pressurization system. If it's set incorrectly, oxygen levels can drop dangerously as the plane climbs. On Flight 522, investigators later discovered a fatal mistake. The pressurization system was left in the wrong setting after a previous maintenance check. Instead of automatically adjusting the cabin pressure, it was set to manual, a small switch that sealed the fate of everyone on board. Just minutes after takeoff, alarms began to sound in the cockpit. A loud warning horn echoed through the flight deck. Normally, this sound meant the plane wasn't properly configured for takeoff. But in this case, it was actually a cabin altitude warning, signaling that oxygen levels were dropping fast. The confusion was deadly. The pilots didn't recognize what the alarm really meant. At the same time, freezing air began to seep into the cabin. Flight attendants noticed lights flickering. Oxygen masks suddenly dropped. But it was already too late. The crew was beginning to feel the effects of hypoxia. Hypoxia is one of aviation's greatest dangers. When oxygen levels fall, the brain is starved. First comes dizziness, then confusion, then euphoria, until you lose consciousness completely. The scariest part? Victims rarely realize it's happening. They feel strangely calm, even happy, as they drift into unconsciousness. That's what happened inside Helios 522. One by one, passengers slumped in their seats, unaware of the danger. In the cockpit, Captain Hans-Jürgen Merton and First Officer Pampos Karalambos struggled to understand the alarms, but their mental clarity was slipping away. From the outside, everything looked normal. Air traffic controllers in Athens contacted the aircraft, but received no response. For nearly 2 hours, the plane flew on autopilot, steadily climbing to 34,000 feet. It became known as the Ghost Flight, a silent Boeing 737 full of unconscious people cruising aimlessly across the skies of Greece. The military was scrambled. 2 F-16 fighter jets were sent to intercept and inspect the strange aircraft. When the F-16s pulled alongside Helios 522, they saw a chilling sight. Through the cockpit windows, the captain's seat was empty. The co-pilot sat motionless, slumped over the controls. Inside the cabin, passengers were still strapped in their seats, unmoving, their oxygen mask dangling uselessly. But then, the pilots spotted something unexpected. A man was moving inside the cockpit. That man was Andreas Prodromo, a 25-year-old flight attendant. Unlike the others, he had managed to remain conscious longer, using a portable oxygen bottle. With extraordinary courage, he entered the cockpit, put on the captain's headset, and tried desperately to save the plane. The fighter pilots later recalled seeing him wave desperately, even trying to regain control of the aircraft. But his oxygen ran out. Moments later, he too collapsed. The plane continued flying on autopilot until fuel began to run low. At 12:03 p.m., nearly 3 hours after takeoff, Both engines flamed out. The Boeing 737 started a slow, spiraling descent. At 12:04 p.m., Helios Airways Flight 522 slammed into a hillside near Grammatico, north of Athens. All 121 souls on board were lost. The crash shocked the world. How could an entire plane silently fall victim to oxygen loss without anyone realizing in time? And investigators concluded that the pressurization switch, left in the wrong position, was the root cause. But there were deeper questions. Why didn't the pilots recognize the alarm? Why didn't the airline's procedures catch the mistake? Why did no one survive, despite having oxygen masks? The tragedy of Helios 522 led to sweeping changes in aviation safety. Cockpit alarms were redesigned to reduce confusion. Pilots received more training on hypoxia and pressurization. And airlines reviewed their maintenance and checklist procedures to ensure such a mistake could never happen again. But for the families of the victims, these changes came too late. Among the passengers were families traveling together, children excited for vacations, workers returning home. Their stories were overshadowed by technical details, but every one of them had a life cut short. The most haunting image remains the bravery of Andreas Prodromou, the flight attendant who tried until his last breath to save everyone on board. Today, Helios Airways no longer exists. The disaster destroyed the company, but the memory of Flight 522 continues to echo in aviation history. It stands as a stark reminder. In the skies, even the smallest mistake can unleash catastrophic consequences. But it also reminds us of human courage, the will of one man who refused to give up, even when surrounded by the silence of unconscious passengers in the endless blue sky. Helios 522 will forever be remembered as the flight where everyone fell asleep and never woke up. What do you think? Could something like this still happen today? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more unbelievable and chilling stories from around the world. Because sometimes the strangest mysteries happen in the skies above us.